Welcome to Kung Fu Havoc number 2. This is my final video outside, possibly. Okay, so check it out. I'm going to talk about martial arts and the height and the martial art that I personally believe that you should take classified by your height. Alright? Now, I'm not talking about like your body mass index, so I don't give a flying shit about how much you weigh, but for your body height itself, like any range from 5'1" or 4'11" to 6 feet and beyond. I'm 5'3.5". I weigh a good 120 pounds. I'm not allowed to go up to 130 because I just had a hip replacement 5 years ago, and they don't want me doing wushu and anything that has excessive jumping and hardcore landing, which wushu tends to have. This hip is in danger of being replaced, so now we get serious. If you are over 6 feet, I'm not saying that you can't take Chinese martial arts. I personally just don't recommend it. And not because I play Shaq Fu. Alright? But, Kung Fu is a small man's game. Alright? It really is a small man's game. Now, it also depends on what type of Kung Fu you are taking. Animal styles you probably can get away with as a larger person. Where like Wing Chun and Kung Fu itself, and maybe some wushu, not so much. But Kempo, touch and go. Because most people that are 6 feet and lower, I would definitely recommend Kempo. I would also recommend Aikido, even though people are shitting on Aikido. I mean, right now, as of 2020 and 2019, in fact, we'll go back to 2016, people have been shitting on Aikido for a while. But here's the thing, before I go too far on how many people are shitting on Aikido. Your style of martial art and how you use it is where it counts, versus you see someone else do it and their Aikido sucks. Well, it's probably because that Aikido, either they just started training or they haven't been training long enough to understand how Aikido actually works. Now, Aikido does work on joint locks and pressure points, kind of just like Jiu-Jitsu, not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I suck at that shit, so I can't give you any advice on that. But Jiu-Jitsu with your grapples and your locks and shit, I have taken that, which is another part of how I learned some pressure points before I started taking Kempo. Now, a lot of people do not agree with pressure points. I live by pressure points. No, I can't make you shit on yourself. But I can stop you from hurting me with certain locks and joints and grabs and shit. Now, a lot of Aikido, it locks, like you got wrist locks and shit so that you can manipulate people and throw them around. Okay, but like from 6 foot and up, no. 6 foot's fine. 6'1's fine. But when you start getting into like the 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 7 feet tall people, Aikido's a little bit close range, twisting and turning, and the part where you have to twist and go under somebody's arm to make them flip. Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that when you're 6'5" and the guy you're trying to flip is like 5'2". You might as well just go ahead and just whip him around, because that'll be a whole lot easier than you trying to do the Aikido step through and flip thing. Because that's not going to be something that you're going to be able to do with somebody so small. Plus, it also gives them a chance to actually reverse that shit. So, we don't want that. Now, before we get into any more tall people, we're going to get into people who are 6 foot even down to 4'11". Alright, so since I've only studied a certain variety of martial arts, those are the ones that I'm going to recommend for you by size. So again, anybody under 6'2", or 6'3", because that's like that borderline cusp. Because 6'3" is tall, but it's not omega tall. It's omega tall for me because I'm only 5'3". But if you're 6'3" and up, there's a little bit of issue. If you're 6'3" and down, these are the ones that I recommend for you. I will say that you can do Drunken Master. I will say Capoeira. I will say every animal style of Kung Fu, from Tiger, Dragon, Snake. Make sure the beak is open. So that was more crane than snake. But I get them messed up sometimes with my hands. But mantis, snake, for sure the beak is open now. And then the crane, those animal styles, when you're in the 6 foot range, they're fine. But when you start getting into like northern and southern Shaolin, stuff like that, not a lot of Asian guys are super tall that's in the Shaolin Temple. Every now and again, you may find a genetic enigma. I'm not going to call anybody a freak, but you may find a genetic enigma that can do the same shit. But height and genetics versus gravity, nobody likes gravity. But a lot of Shaolin monks are not over 6'3". They may be now, because Yao Ming's like one of the tallest Asian dudes on the planet. So, but for the most part, if you're over 6'3", I don't recommend you doing any Chinese martial arts. I'm sorry, I just don't recommend it. You don't have to follow my recommendations, but there's a reason for that. If you're over 6 feet, I'm going to tell you Korean martial arts, like Taekwondo, Karate, Korean Kempo. It does exist because that's what I learned. There's a couple other ones, I can't remember the name of them. And then like weapons is a whole nother video, but we're not going to go into that because you're 6'5". You don't really need weapons. You already have the range, so you can use a short bow. Again, we're not going to go into that. But, like if you're over 6'5", Taekwondo, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, things that, your long arms can help you with. Thai fighting, Thai boxing, Thai kickboxing, the real Muay Thai, things where you have good extension. Now, for a shorter people, every martial art you can find is pretty much within your range. Alright? And the reason why I say that is because a shorter person tends to be a lot more lethal with their kicks and a lot more faster on certain aspects of martial arts. I'm pissing people off right now, I just know it. But the fact of the matter is, martial arts was actually made for smaller people to combat bigger people. It's not that bigger people can't do martial arts, it's just that martial arts is more of a smaller man's game. Unless you're like in UFC, MMA, Rec, Havoc, Pride, all those other things where 9 times out of 10, if you're doing MMA, you're doing everything anyway. So you're doing wrestling, you're doing ground and pound, you're doing kung fu or any other martial art that you choose to call it, because you're in a ring. You're also in a controlled environment. Same thing with Taekwondo, and Taekwondo is definitely for taller people, because you have all these fancy kicks where people are like, I'm going to attempt this, it's probably not going to work because I'm old. So you have like your 3 triangle kick. So you have your left, right, and then up. And the Taekwondo people, because I can no longer do Taekwondo, they're holding that shit. They're holding that shit right there. Where I'm old. So when I throw this kick, it's coming back down. I'm not keeping that shit there. And that's that thing about Taekwondo. You have to have some serious leg muscles for holding that shit in place. I no longer have that. I'm in my 40s. Trust me. If I get to fighting with a person who's Taekwondo, the first thing I'm doing is taking out their legs. Because a lot of Taekwondo is about certain kicks and certain legs. So with Taekwondo, when you're doing that show-off shit where you're like 1, 2, 3, and then you got the 4th one where you're up there and you're holding it, which I could never do. So after that first kick, if I'm hit 2 more times, I'm probably going to sleep. So as soon as they throw that first kick that's there, boom, I'm striking. Okay, so now I'm going to piss you off again. If you've never been hit in the ankle, that's what that was. So I'm going to do a 2-knuckle strike to your ankle, mostly because you're Taekwondo and you've never probably been hit in the ankle, and mostly your foot protection protects the front, while you're in tournaments. So you have to look for the chinks in the armor. That didn't come out right at all. That sounds completely racist. But you have to look for those in the armor, and you have to strike them. Now, if you're not going full battle rattle in Taekwondo, which means you don't have the headgear, you only have the belly and the shin guards, then I got a better chance of stopping you with that 2-knuckle strike to the elbow. Now, also, there's a 2-knuckle strike to the metacarpals, but you got to be fast enough to do that. Boom! If you're not fast enough to do that when you guys are in your Taekwondo stance, there's going to be a problem. The good thing about Taekwondo is everybody's always jumping. They're always moving around. So now I have to be aware of that. Now, for your tall people who are doing Taekwondo, it's a whole lot easier for you to do hook kicks, spin kicks, and that little triangle boom, boom, boom thing, and then the extra icing on the cake kick. But the thing about fighting someone my size is that you're going to have to just basically stop at the first 2. Because if you kick over my head, I win. Because I'm going to sweep your standing leg and I'm going to elbow you in the crotch, and I'm going to call it a night. You're not going to be a very happy person with me. Except for that shit's illegal in combat. In the arena system of combat. Now, the thing about martial arts, when you're taller, you need to first study martial arts for taller people. Alright? Karate has a pretty good following of tall people. Chuck Norris is at least 6'2". Alright? Again, Shaq Fu. Shaquille O'Neal's pretty tall, but I'm thinking he's like 7'4". There's a lot of tall people doing martial arts as well, but for taller people, again, I'm gonna preach. You want to do some more Thailand-based martial arts. I just learned about the Filipino martial arts, so I can't give you any information on that. Capoeira is okay for tall people, but there's a limit to your movement because of your body structure. And that's the main thing that I should have said from the jump, so I apologize for that. How your body is structured is something you should also look into as you dabble into martial arts. Because here's the thing. I started off in karate, and karate's great. It's not for me. I switched over to Taekwondo and Kempo and Kung Fu. By the time I got to high school, I was all about Kung Fu. Alright? And not more or less Wushu, but just Kung Fu, aka Gung Fu. Because I'm a small guy, and Wing Chun, she was a small woman who's beating on big guys who were like 5'11" and up. Because Asians didn't get that big in history until like more farther down the road. But Asians were big in certain regions of Asia. So, she didn't really encounter too many people over 6 feet. But everyone that she encountered, she pretty much beat their ass. So, martial arts was made for little people to combat big people. But they never said that big people couldn't do martial arts. In case I'm not stumbling over my words, which I probably am, you have to understand your body mechanics are different from my body mechanics. So if you're going around and you're going boom, and then you catch your foot and you're doing this kick, I like to call it the Power Ranger yo-yo kick. So if you're doing that, which is also a Taekwondo thing that someone started from Taekwondo, I don't really know. But, certain kicks are made for certain body structures, and that is a very important lesson that you have to learn as a martial artist. Your body might not be made for certain martial arts. It's not that you can't do that martial art, but some of the kicks aren't made for your people, your size, and your body. So you should definitely look into certain height ramifications for martial arts. Everybody says that's bullshit. I say no, because here's how this works. If you're 6'5" and you're doing Kung Fu, but you're not doing Wing Chun, you're just doing Wushu. Alright? I don't know anybody 6'5" who really does Wushu, but if you're out there, please contact me. I want to see you do the stuff that Mike Chat does and some of the Paul Mitchell guys, where they do the whole 360 spin while in the air. A lot of that shit's made for smaller people because you can get more rotations with a smaller body. When you're 6 foot, there's a good chance that you may jam yourself on your landing. Alright? And specifically for the people who are doing Wushu and they land on their crotch, not this guy, but I only did the other landing where you just land on the leg, where you do the tornado kick but you land on your leg. Alright, so I can no longer do that because this is the leg that I landed on and this is the leg that has the hip replacement. I try it the other way, it doesn't feel as good. Alright? So the thing is, your body shape, structure, and weight affects your martial art. So I'm breaking it down. Instead of demonstrating now, I'm breaking it down for you. Because, alright, everybody, no matter how big you are, you can do this side kick, where you draw it up and back. Alright? That's a side kick that I was taught in Taekwondo. Do not ask me why. Master Jim Ennis made me do push-ups. If I didn't do it, guard up, draw it up, and then thrust it out. Alright? So I did push-ups. That does not feel comfortable at all. But everyone can do it. Everyone can do a stepping side. That was a double. But that's because my body naturally won't let me just do one. So we're going to try just one. And the only way I can do one is the behind the foot tag for the crane style. We're going to avoid that and just try one kick. So slow motion, step, and boom. That's a stepping side kick. So now my normal body motion is, and that's still 2. But that's what my body does just automatically. So it's hard for me to just go boom and just do 1. And my body wants to do this because 2 kicks are better than 1. Sometimes 1 kick is all necessary, but 2 kicks are better than 1. So, there. Same thing with the other side. Now the problem is body structure. You have to know your body structure. You have to know your body mechanics. Because sometimes this here could be swept. When my foot was on that second kick, if the guy ducks it and front sweeps it, I'm going down. Not only am I going down, depending on how I land, I'm probably going to get my ass kicked. So we don't want that. We want to be able to recover. So while we're on that, if he sweeps my foot and he's holding my foot, I can probably do the 180 or the enziguri. I will not be able to do the 360 because I'm going in that direction. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be so worried about falling down that recovery won't be something that's high on my list. Because that person's probably going to be on top of me as soon as I hit the ground. If they haven't hit the ground. So, the big guys. Here's where we break down and have some fun. Alright? So, big guys, again, I'm going to piss you guys off, but I'm going to say it. My personal opinion only. I think all big guys over 6'2" should work on Thai fighting. Alright? Because it's a long range fight and you have longer limbs. So, you have the elbows and forearms. It's a whole lot easier for you to be up here and elbow me with one of those versus me trying to do that to you. Because you're bigger than me, I have to jump. If I jump, you can just catch me and body slam me. So why would I want to do that? Because that's something that only a stupid person would do. So if we're fighting, I have to pick my spots. Alright? Especially if I'm fighting somebody who's 6'5", who knows Thai fighting. I have to learn my blocks. Because I know that your first Thai kick, boom, I have to block that bitch. And if that doesn't work, or if I do block it, and I smack this down, a Thai fighter is going to shift and throw from that foot that's pushed down into a knee. So if he goes into that knee, I got a problem. Alright, because I've already blocked it. Now he shifted his knee and he's coming back up through my block. So if I don't push off when I block him, or if I don't grab his leg and keep going, we have a problem. Because he's over 6'5", which means he has range. He can step back from me all day and draw me into the fight. So when I tell big guys to study Thai fighting, it's not because I'm being a dick, it's because it'll be easier for them to manipulate my little ass and get me into the position that they need for a forearm strike, a knee strike, an elbow this way, another forearm / elbow. And a lot of people who don't know this, now you're going to know this, and I probably shouldn't show this, but I'm going to show this. So if you're fighting a Thai fighter and they forearm strike you, and if it's a double blow with the same arm, it's actually this. Boom, and then boom. And they're coming down to open your ass up. Alright? So you have to understand how Thai fighting works. Thai fighting has a lot of moves that will cut the shit out of you if you're not careful. So when they hit you with that forearm, and then they do the same arm, and they come right back down, they had that plan from the jump. So if you're blocking it, and they block it again, you got to watch the other stuff. But then they will probably front kick you or knee you. So if your block's like this, and they come through the middle with that knee, somewhere along the line, you fucked up. So, you have to understand how your body mechanics work. So if you're fighting and you block this way and this way, it's not as effective as it looks because it looks horrible. But in the long run, this is to block the knee. This is for blocking the elbow and that. Because sooner or later, somebody's going to get tired. If you can block and outlast your attacker and wear them out, you got a pretty good chance of taking them down. But again, guy's 6'3", he has range. So if you block, you have to get in. And on the backside of that, the guy who's 6'3", you're 5'3". So you have to be fast enough to not only get in, but if you draw him in, you need to be able to get close enough to do damage. Because he's 6'3". He's going to have enough sense and sensibility to protect himself no matter how close you get. But that's another thing for Thai fighters who are tall, because you're taught to block. You know, you're taught to block. You know, so you don't just block up here. You block with these too. So they're throwing one of these, and you're going to be on this end because most people are right-footed. So they're throwing that right foot, and you're blocking like this. TIE Fighter's blocking that way because it's easier for them to use both of their sparing weapons at the same time, which is a knee and an elbow. And the thing about TIE fighting, these elbows, these knees, those damn things are dangerous. They're as dangerous as a fist or a foot. And see, a lot of people got to understand, when you're in a fight with somebody, you need to be able to adapt. If I'm fighting a guy who knows TIE fighting, you better believe I'm going to learn TIE fighting before that first hit hits me. Because I'm going to recognize his style. You got your Muay Thai here, and then you have your Muay Thai that's just normal boxing. You know, so you got to be able to be aware of that shit. And if that guy goes from here to here, you know, you need to recognize that style. And then if he breaks it down and starts going capoeira, you know, you need to be able to recognize that. And yes, there are people who are at least 6'4" that do capoeira. That much I know. I think Mark Dacascos is 6'2". And he put capoeira on the map. So he's 6'2", and the guy he fought in the movie is a good 6'3", 6'4". So therefore, you can do capoeira. Mark might be 5'11". Actually, I don't really know how tall Mark Dacascos is, but I think he's at the 6 foot range. At best, he's 5'11", 6 foot. He's in there somewhere. He's not 5'7". That would be Van Damme. And Jet Li's like 5'6". So, you know, Jackie Chan's like 5'7", 5'6". So, you know, you gotta worry about your body mechanics versus your height versus your style that you choose. So, let's say, I don't know the Filipino martial art, but a lot of guys that do Filipino martial arts are taller, and they're taller than me. Now, if you're using the martial art where you use the stick, I only learned stick fighting when I learned Kempo, so I don't know the Filipino version of that. I know there's one stick, where Kempo you have 2 sticks, so it's like a touch and go thing. So if you're doing a Filipino martial art whose name I don't know, you know, that's probably for everybody. I don't know too many tall or short Filipinos. They're probably like riding right in the middle. I'm short, so I don't care. But, you know, if you're going to do the Filipino martial art and you're over 6 foot, then that's for you if you think it's for you. Now, again, if you're over 6 foot, 6'5", whatever, I can't say that you can't do all the Chinese martial arts. I personally just don't recommend them. I'm going to end this video really soon, plus my phone's about to die. But if you're going to do martial arts and you're over 6'5", I strongly recommend that you go with more Japanese, Korean, and Thai style of martial arts. And not just Thailand, but Taiwan as well. Yes, Taiwan has a martial art. I do not know the name of it, but I know it exists. Yeah, it's almost not too many Asian countries that don't have martial arts. It's just kind of like a touch and go thing. And yes, Egypt has a martial art as well. And we're not going to go there. But, you know, for the most part, your body size, for anyone 6 foot and down, you can probably do every martial art on the planet. And I recommend that you do. So basically just go to an MMA class, because they're going to cover everything, including wrestling, which is also technically a martial art. Now, if you're 6'5" and up, I've given you the 3 continents or countries that I recommend. I don't try to sway anybody to whatever. I mean, if you're 6'5" and you can do Wing Chun and Kung Fu and Wushu, hey, again, you're a fucking ace because of the low range movements and the high flying. Same thing with anything Shaolin. But if you want to stick with your body mechanics, Thai fighting, Japanese karate, any of the Japanese karates, and yes, that includes Aikido, but Aikido and Harp Kido, they don't look like they're really made for people over 6'2". But I'm not God, and I would say go for what you know. But like, if you're going to do Taekwondo, because most of that you're probably going to have to learn it in South Korea. You're never going to get in North Korea to find their martial art, which is also probably Taekwondo. But you know, you have to understand which Taekwondo are you taking. Are you taking Taekwondo? Are you taking Olympic sport Taekwondo or the other Taekwondo? Because there's like 3 of them. But no matter which one you're taking, your body has to be able to adapt and adjust to that. And again, the taller you are, martial arts isn't completely difficult. But I want you to take this into consideration. Just take this into consideration. You don't have to agree with it. Just take it into consideration. When you see people like The Undertaker or Hulk Hogan or even The Rock, and they use like the big boot, alright? And, you know, Khali, the big Indian dude that used to wrestle, you can never see him get his legs up there because he has some health issues. But seeing people that big move stuff, I mean, watching the Big Show do a spear is a whole different ball game than watching the Big Show do a fucking jumping front kick. Okay? If I see the Big Show do a jumping front kick, cool. Now, we've seen Brock Lesnar do a moonsault, but you also have to look at their different body mechanics in that. Brock Lesnar is like super slim and cut. Big Show is cut, but his body mechanics look more chunky than Brock. Alright? If you look at Brock's legs versus the Big Show legs, the Big Show has tiny problems of getting around versus Brock, who's not as tall as the Big Show, but just tall enough to be able to do the shit. Then you have to look at Bobby Lashley's body. All these guys are cut differently built from the Big Show. Henceforth, that body mechanics in your martial arts will play a factor in that. Now, if Big Show, and God, I like the Big Show, so please, Big Show, we're not going to go to war on Instagram. But if Big Show wanted to do sumo wrestling, he has the body more for that. Yes, there are people who do sumo wrestling who's only 5'2". And there are women who do sumo wrestling who's only 5'2". You see where I'm going? Your body mechanics have a lot to do with what martial arts style you take, what martial arts style you do. Now, I say that lovingly just because of the simple fact, I'm 5'3". There isn't a martial art on the planet that I'm not willing to dabble into except for sumo wrestling. And also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I suck at it. But other than that, everything else, I'm ready to go. So if we're having a capoeira match, I'm more than likely going to lose. But I know enough capoeira to avoid getting hit. Alright? So I also know to combat capoeira, if I only know Chinese Kung Fu, then I'm going to use the Drunken Master or the Drunken Monkey. Yes, the Drunken Monkey is a real style. So, you know, you have to understand what works with what when it comes to combat. You know, all styles have a combative and equal style. Like I said, your snake and your crane and your mantis. Those three are enigma styles that can actually go against all in each other as well. Where the dragon versus the tiger, you know, those are made to fight each other because they're supposedly the polar opposites. Now, when you're doing Kung Fu and Wing Chun, which has no animal styles in them that I know of, and if they do, then I don't know those animal styles. But, you know, for your Kung Fu and your Wing Chun and their short hits, they're the same damn hit, you know. So if you're going to do floating hands, excuse me, that was more like smacking hands. This is floating hands for Tai Chi, you know. Yes, Tai Chi is a martial art. It's more of a relaxing martial art that, you know, you can use Tai Chi, Buddha strike, and elbow. I don't know why it's called a Buddha strike. I was taught it was called a Buddha double palm. I don't know why it's called that, but that's what I was told it's called. I'm probably wrong, but if that's what you're told it's called, then just go by what you're told. You know, it's much easier to go by what you're told than to cause a fucking argument. I smell deer piss. There's one around here somewhere. I can smell it. I don't know where the hell it's at, but I can smell it. Sorry, guys. Ah, crap. Here we go with this bitch again. I would be that guy that discovers Bigfoot just because my flashlight died. Alright, so to end the video and to end Instagram, your body mechanics is the last thing I want to talk about. Alright. So we all have 5 fingers and toes if we're blessed to be born, and we're all breathing the same air, which is why I can smell the deer piss. I don't know where the deer is, but I can smell the son of a bitch, and it's like really powerful. It's like really potent, which is why I got to end this video, because I'm getting a little sick in the gut. Alright, so your body mechanics. You build a muscle, you flex. So bicep, tricep, you know the drill. Alright, so depending on what you are taught, same thing with your femur and your knee, with your thigh. I don't know if it's called a tricep or a thigh-cep, but you know what it is. and then the back is the same. They work on the same principle. All right, so if you're going to break someone's leg, I always say break at the kneecap. If you're going to break an arm, you break at the elbow. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because that's the way I was taught to do it, versus the Steven Seagal break at the wrist. You know, I don't have time to break at the wrist, because if you can see all my veins, you know, when I do that, I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me get closer. But you can see that, and it is midnight. If you can see that, down in here in your elbow controls most of that, according to science and your preliminary arteries and pressure point techniques that I learned in Kempo. Go with it. Don't agree with it. Just go with it. Because a lot of people don't believe in pressure points. But playing in compliance is the same damn thing. When I put you in a Fujiwara arm bar, or I just put you in an arm bar, I'm going to hold your arm either this way or this way to make sure that you're feeling some pain on some level or another to stop you. So I don't believe in breaking at the wrist, because when I was taught Kung Fu and someone throws a punch, I can snap that punch. I can either pull it with both hands going this way and pushing. So it's like I can do it this way, push and pull, or I can do it this way with the push and pull. And then my next snap will be down or it'll be up. If it goes up and I'm under the arm, my head will go here around the back of their head. So if I go this way, like using a snake, I can claw them and I can bring my knee to their face. With proper body mechanics, it can be done by breaking, grabbing, and pulling down. The reason why I did it this way is because it's Kung Fu when it was simpler. Now, I'm going to do the same thing. It is still Kung Fu, but I'm using a karate style knee. So I break, I can elbow, or I break, I can punch and grab and bring my knee to their forehead. And the reason why you want to do that is if you want to use power. So your body mechanics, your height, your weight, your size, gravity, all these are things to take into accountability when you are in a fight. And the reason why I say that is because you just don't know. And all fights are different. All fights are adaptable. And that's some things that you have to understand before you do that. So, to my bro who's out there, to combat short people, as I bring this to an end, to combat short people, you want to combat them with martial arts built for short people. So, Wing Chun, Kung Fu, this thing just paused. Fantastic. Thanks for watching. Gone a little longer than I wanted.